Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we will be talking about the Japanese kaiju film Godzilla Minus One, written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki and released January 26th, 2024.
Yes, somewhat recent.
Yeah, it's one we would have covered in our Oscar coverage last year, but it wasn't released widely enough when we were doing that. So we kicked it back a little bit, and then a bunch of stuff happened, and we were going to record it like a year ago, and then it just kept getting pushed back. But we're finally going to do it.
It really was a year ago that we were going to do it, because I found the doc, and it's like, oh yeah, June 2024. Sure, we were going to do it then.
But that's okay. We got it all worked out to do it now, because of course, if we're talking Godzilla, especially a Toho Godzilla film, we can't do that here without bringing in our resident Godzilla expert, Mr. Mark Kirkman. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Mark, I think you're setting the record for being on the podcast the most at this point, potentially.
No. Ben Beck was.
I don't think so. Not anymore. I think this time you are moving forward.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't keep a list or anything, but I think you're neck and neck, yeah. And Rima, too.
Interesting.
You don't keep guest stats?
No, I don't.
You should.
I thought you could take on that responsibility.
I mean, I'd have to just go back and go through all the episodes. I'm sure I could do it.
I'm sure you could, too.
I'm sure he would. Yeah, I'm sure Pake could do it.
But will he? I don't know.
It's so
he might surprise
much work to look at episodes and remember people.
I know. Right? Sure. You could probably do it in like 10 minutes. However, I did not do that in this instance. I just think that Mark has been on enough for, Dante's Peak and Godzilla. Like, I just feel like he's been on enough. If not, it's very close. So
I just like talking Godzilla, everybody. They know this.
And you have all the information, and especially because this is Toho, we really felt like we had to have you on to talk about this, because you bring so much of that lore and information to the table. You can share it with our listeners.
And plus, I actually did cover Legacy of Monsters Monarch with our friend Ben Beck on Wilhelm, as well as Podcastica. So we have that.
Yeah, because we got to guest on
the finale
episode of that.
You were on the finale, yeah.
Yeah, which was awesome. And then I know, season 2 is in the works, and I assume you guys will be covering that, and maybe we'll get to hop back on. And then teasing another little crossover is we may have you back on this podcast soon. Maybe
Ben.
even you and Ben, because we still haven't done Godzilla X Kong New Empire. We have not done that yet.
Right.
Yes, the legacy version of Godzilla. That is the Americanized version.
Yes, and you know the problem is? I love Godzilla, and I have not seen that movie yet, because I've been waiting for us to cover it. I've been waiting. Pake is rubbing off on me. He's getting me to not watch something till just before we cover it. And
mind you, there's a new movie in the works, everybody, too. There's another movie coming out.
It's a problem.
And we will talk about that towards the end of the podcast. And then I'm sure Daphne's like, please, no spoilers.
No, I'm fine with spoilers. Well, mostly. Pake is the one that doesn't want any spoiler.
But I've seen New Empire. I saw it in theaters when it came out, so
I can't even. This is so the reverse of anything that ever has happened. That you have been and seen the movie before me, and I'm still waiting to watch it. So you know what? This weekend I'm watching it.
Go for it.
I'm not going to wait any longer.
I always say this. Toho movies are always just fun to watch consistently as a marathon. We are celebrating 70 years of Godzilla. Now, mind you, Toho has realized, oh crap, Godzilla came out in 1954, but we're in 2025. They're extending the 70.
It's like they missed it and then have to like hit the brakes and go, wait. Okay, we'll go ahead and do it now. We'll just...
We got some really cool stuff that came out about Godzilla within the past year during its 70th anniversary. There's more product out there for America. There's a lot more movies, digital downloads, stuff that you could find on iTunes, 4K Blu-rays that are coming out, things that you could actually pick up if you're a Godzilla fan. So me, who is a physical media enthusiast and loves to have his Godzilla stuff and fix on physical media, I've been buying that stuff as well when I can. And I highly recommend you guys do so as well, because you get a little bit more. And on top of that, they're celebrating throughout the year and into the new, 71st year of Godzilla. And that's something to be celebrated because, obviously we're getting another legendary film. They're working on a new Minus One sequel. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But right now we're concentrating on what? Minus One. So let's do that.
Well, I do have to say, from what I've read, Takashi Yamazaki is going to be involved with the next one, with the sequel to this. Which, for me, I always feel the best step in the right direction for a sequel is to take whoever was behind the successful film and have them continue the story. And so that makes me feel a little bit comfortable about what the next film could be. And I have decided that if it's in the theater here, I'm going to go see it in the theater, because as I was watching Minus One, I just kept thinking, I wish I had seen this in the theater. Yeah. I wish I had seen this in the theater.
Oh, you didn't see Minus One in the theater?
No.
I did, but I got lucky. It was only playing in one theater near me, and it was not there much longer. And I probably wouldn't have if it wasn't for the fact that it was nominated for an Oscar. And I do the Oscar thing every year to where, like, as soon as, like, nominees came out, I look, and anything that's nominated that's currently in theaters, I try to knock that out immediately because they don't last always. So, and then they take too long to come out on digital and you don't get to see them. So it was one of those immediate, I was like, it's nominated, it's in the theater, making a day of it, here we go. It knocked out like 2 or 3 movies in like a day and just spent the whole day at the theater. But it was, well worth it. This movie, I had a great time, and it was, to watch it here again at home and take notes and stuff, still, like, a lot of the emotional beats really worked. A lot of the action was really cool. The visuals were cool. But this was a movie that I'm glad that I got to experience for the first time in theaters, because it was quite the spectacle. Yeah, I definitely have to go see the next one in the theater. I can't not, because the cinematography was just so incredible, even on my TV. And I definitely need to see it in the theater. It's got to happen.
I actually had the pleasure of seeing a lot of Toho films in the theater. I saw Godzilla 1985. It took a lot of years before I got to see Godzilla in the theater again, which was Godzilla 2000. That came after Godzilla 1998. It wasn't until I moved to Dutchess County, and I had seen it in Putnam County. So that was one. But a lot of people that were in the theater were like, why is it subtitled? Anyhow, we had fun with it, but I got to see it, and I saw it in the theater. I was like, oh my god, it's the second Godzilla film I got to see. After that, I got to see Shin Godzilla, which was always shunned upon. Now, mind you, that was a different movie altogether. It was like Hellraiser versus Godzilla. It was like a morphing of a Godzilla. So, for you Godzilla fans that hate and shun that film, I'm sorry. I did enjoy it for what it was. It was very different. But then I got to see Godzilla Minus One. And I got to see that with my friends Adam Gonzalez and Robert Moda, who accompany me on Panels to Pixels podcast, Adrenaline Cinema podcast, as well when we were doing, Fantasy Picks movie edition at that time. We actually did a version of our coverage of that. Whether it's still there, it probably still is. So you guys could check that out. But I did have a love for this film, which was it was done very well in the Godzilla lore. But I was the only one there with a big, huge smile. In the theater, while opening night, and it's just me, Adam, and Rob, and maybe about 15 or maybe 18 other people behind us in the theater. And I got a big smile, and Rob just looks over and says to Adam, and goes, "Mark's in his glory." And that's the whole thing, is that no matter what, it's Godzilla. I'm going to love it. They kind of mock it and have a laugh about it, but as odd that Godzilla is, and my love for it is, it just brings me back to my childhood of every holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, they would have Godzilla Week on WPIX, Channel 11 in New York City. And it would have a week of kaiju films, of Godzilla, Gamera, all that cool stuff. And it's love the cult
stuff that you're like, that you tie to your childhood. That's why no matter all the sequels, spin-offs, different versions that come out, direct to video, whatever they are, no matter how bad they are, I'm going to always have a love for it and stick with it. That is because of what I was raised with, what my dad showed me as a kid. That is why no matter what happens, Tremors and Star Wars are the two things that will always be like connected to me. And it doesn't matter what happens, where it goes, I'm going to love it and eat it up and enjoy it, because it's those two like things are just tied to my childhood. So
and it brings you back to who you are and resonates throughout your life.
It takes you back to a place where you feel almost like you're in a cocoon
and a kid.
It's a happy, easy place, I think. Sometimes.
I feel sorry for any girlfriend that I achieve at certain points in my life where they go, "What's with all this freaking Godzilla crap?" So, I do have Trendmasters Godzillas that have like motion active sounds and things of that nature. I used to have them in my bathroom, which was so funny too, because of people in my old place back in Staten Island. They would walk in. Oh, there's a Godzilla freaking placemat in the bathroom. There's a soap dish holder. There's a toothbrush holder. What is with Godzilla? And why is this stuff screaming at me? And it does. And I still have them this day in my apartment, which is funny too. But I don't activate them because, God forbid, well, honestly, it would be the best way for my cameras to track and see if it's motion detected, so people can it'll scream at them. But the thing is that I have a love for it. The 2014 Godzilla, I have it's about 3 feet tall from head to tail, and I have that. So anybody who comes in this place will be like, there's Godzilla, there's Iron Maiden, there's a lot of horror stuff. That's just who I am. And I'm sure any woman that dates me will be like, I need to either get the hell out of here or...
No, Mark, whatever. You just need to find the one who comes in and realizes how cool it is.
This is awesome.
Yeah, that's what you need.
Litmus test. If they come in and go, "Oh, cool, Godzilla," you go, "All right, we're starting strong."
I have a Godzilla pencil sharpener, everybody.
Oh my goodness.
So,
we are going to get started with some production notes. It was filmed in Tokyo, Japan. In addition to directing, Yamazaki was also involved with the visual effects. It's the 37th film in the Godzilla franchise and Toho's 33rd Godzilla film. It's the most successful Japanese Godzilla film of all time. Budget was between 10 and 12 million. It grossed almost 116 million at the box office. It was 125 minutes long. Pake, give us that wonderful synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
You forgot something.
You know what, Mark? Yes, you're right. It won an Oscar at the 96th Academy Awards for Best Visual Effects.
Awesome.
So, yes. Pake, can you give us that beautiful synopsis?
All right. Post-war Japan is at its lowest point when a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster baptized in the horrific power of the atomic bomb.
Ooh. Well, I already said this, but I wish I'd seen it in the theater. And 2, I wasn't prepared for the emotional feelings I got during this movie. Yeah, I wasn't ready emotionally for how I was feeling at different points in this movie.
Let's talk about that.
We will talk about that.
Honestly, that's what a true Godzilla film is. A lot of people get a little bit, and I'm not trying to take over everybody, but the thing is that with the Godzilla films, it literally relates more towards the people and the characters within it and reacting to the situation with Godzilla and whatever foe they have, or if he is the antagonist at that point to humans. And that's literally where we're back at. And I think that's what it kind of revolutionized Godzilla. It kind of reevaluated. It went back to the original. Because in 1954, Godzilla was the antagonist. He came in, he was a reaction to what the world did, and he became. So we're coming back to that again. This is probably maybe the 3rd or 4th version of Godzilla in this way, to react to man's indiscretions in this world. So this is where we're at.
Yeah, I got that impression from it. It's like, I'm used to the legendary movies where Godzilla and Kong and Mothra and all the...
They're the superheroes!
Yeah, not feeling that vibe from this Godzilla whatsoever.
No. Not quite.
So that was an interesting thing. Usually I'm cheering for the kaiju creatures, like always, but not in this one. So Mark, as our guest, we are going to kick it off with your first point.
Oh, wow. The first point would be the characters, the actual characters that we get within the film, the human ones. It's a story, and with every Godzilla movie, there is a story with human compatibility with what's going on of the overall arc. And that's what's always needed, honestly.
Yeah.
It starts off with somebody who is a fighter pilot. And they were a kamikaze pilot. And they would use a plane to use it as an action of like a violent event, like a missile or something imploding into a ship or a structure or a city. Yeah. We've seen it, unfortunately, through 9/11. That's happened. But the thing is, during World War II, that's what happened. And they literally would kill themselves and flying their ship into something to destroy something that was pertinent for defense for the opposing force. And he was one of those, but he kind of chickened out. And then he set himself on an island. And oh my God, Koichi was amazing. In a sense that he shows up on this island, but he was kind of manipulative in a way to get away from everything. And I felt bad for the character, but you could understand his resolve and, doing this, and then he meets up with these people. And through that effort, he encounters everything on the island that these guys do with this Godzillasaurus. And it's not Godzilla at this point, everybody. This is something that is prehistoric at that point, living on the island, and then just attacks. And he freezes up. And so does everybody else to some point, but they wind up battling it. But he winds up surviving.
They try, though, Mark. They really do try.
They do.
Like, they were brave, these mechanics on the island. They were trying to draw Godzilla in so they could shoot him. Like, they were trying. They were fighting. And that wasn't their thing. They were meant to be fixing planes, not attacking a prehistoric creature that's coming to eat them for lunch.
Yeah, correct. And the thing is that they all came together, but the thing is that Koichi was dealing with this whole thing, and they kind of had a lot of the crew there that were understanding that. It's like, okay, this guy is, he went off kilter. But through the end, they were able to deal with it, and then he goes back to the mainland, and now, mind you, somebody who is a kamikaze pilot is supposed to die at the end. He comes back to where he lived, and it's amongst the war and everything, and Japan is being bombarded because America is blowing it up. And that's the sad part about it, because this is World War II, and he winds up finding himself a place to stay, but also finds somebody else to live with, and also a baby on the same way. The story of them all coming collectively together and him hiding in shame, and then his story overall with Noriko was amazing, as well as Akiko. And I thought that whole story, that family dynamic was amazing just in itself.
He didn't want to see it. Like, he didn't want to see it, though.
But yeah, and it's his journey throughout the beginning to the end of the movie. And that's what I really did enjoy about the movie, is it's the human aspect of the journey. Now, mind you, when we were in the theater, Rob and Adam looked at me going, I don't get it. And they didn't get it. They didn't understand it. They didn't understand where it came from the Japanese storytelling of that, because that's literally Japanese storytelling. Now, mind you, Rob loves Shogun. Like the TV show Shogun that just came out, about a year and a half ago or something. And I was like, did you not pay attention to Godzilla Minus One? Oh, I didn't like it. I was like, you were looking at it as a Godzilla film, not as a story. And I think that's where we kind of like were split in half when we originally did that podcast for his. It's probably still out there too, because I found it on Spotify, everybody. So if you want, do that. Fantasy Picks Movie Edition. Cheap plug. Anyhow, we had a fun time talking about that, but Adam looked at me, he goes, I liked it for some of the visuals. I liked it for the story. But the thing is that a lot of the effects were choppy. And I do agree with that. They looked like PS2 effects with Godzilla. But honestly, it held the integrity of the story, and I loved it for the story part of it, and how, you got Koichi, Noriko, and Akiko, and everybody else involved in the actual story itself that made the whole point of the film, which I really did enjoy. And Godzilla was just there for effect. That was the antagonist. That was what it was supposed to be. Very similar to the 1954 version. Because you got America, we got Raymond Burr as the original for the American Catalyst. But in the original 1954 version, we had other characters that were there, and Raymond Burr wasn't even there. So for those of you are interested, there is the original Japanese version of the 1954 version. You could do a comparison. We have the similar effects. Instead of the oxygen destroyer, we got something else within this, which was very, very cool, because they did something where they would submerge Godzilla down and destroy him with pressure and destroy him that way. And obviously with the full magnitude of, military force and everything else. But to me, that made for a good workaround 70 years later. And now, mind you, the science in it was a little out there, but come on, an oxygen destroyer in 1954 and this whole submersible thing where pressurization and destroying him. Oh my God.
Honestly, I liked Noba. I liked the scientist. I thought he was cool coming up with whatever. He seemed committed, and I was happy about that.
Yeah.
I was happy about the commitment that was made by the citizens who were taking things into their own hands. Yeah. They were tired of waiting for the government to help them and decided, if we're going to get this done, then we're going to have to do it ourselves or die trying, because no one is going to stand up for us. They've let us down all this time.
Correct.
We've got to do it ourselves. Yep. There's no one coming behind us. It's got to be us or... And if you look at Koichi in the beginning, when we meet this terrified, timid person, to where we see him at the end, where he's overjoyed the fact that Noriko is alive.
Yes.
You just see that this family that he wouldn't even accept at that point, he was still kind of, earlier, he's just kind of not accepting it.
It forced him to accept his true passion of what he has. He has a family, and he didn't realize that. And that's really what it boils down to with the story and everything, but also is all an arc of redemption for Koichi. At the very beginning, where he was a coward, and then at the very end, he flies the plane into spoilers, everybody, Godzilla's mouth.
I don't think we have to worry about spoilers. If anybody's listening to this, they better have watched the movie. That's the
if they haven't,
watch
the movie. And don't be surprised if you need some tissues, because there were some points that I, like I said, was not prepared for. My emotional reaction to things.
Oh, several points for me too, because honestly, my attitude is it hits you where the heart is.
Yeah.
And it's really within the characters. And that's where a lot of the Godzilla films fall into. Look at Godzilla 2000. Look at the mid-90s Godzilla during the Heisei series. Look at those. There are characters that we just love and love to see again. Will we see them again in the sequel? We don't know, but I look forward to it. But the movie itself hit every heartstring, struggle, and story plot perfectly. Yeah. And I think that's really where this has rung out. And I think they hit it with the script and with what they could put out and where it's now being acclaimed and why it garnered an Oscar. Finally, it's like Godzilla got an Oscar, in my opinion, which I'm so grateful for. Not just the MTV award he got in the 90s, everybody, but this one too.
Like a real bona fide I went that Academy Award.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I would not put it past the fact that we will get something again. Now, mind you, a lot of the Toho product is always done under budgeted in comparison to most other Japanese or even American-based films.
I think they stretch it, though. I feel like they stretch the budget as much as they can.
Correct.
To give you what may not be perfection, but is honestly art.
Yeah.
Yes. Or enjoyable for the family, or enjoyable for those who are interested for what it gives. And it's, if you think about Godzilla's been around for 70 years. If you go to Japan, there's a building with Godzilla on it. It blows smoke. It roars. You could go up there. There's a Godzilla museum. There's a Godzilla shop you could go to. A whole ton. They have invested in so much into Godzilla because that's part of that, as well as Ultraman and a couple of other oddities that are out there in Japan that I know because my friend, she goes out there and hangs out, which she's an anime fan. So, and we have a friend of ours who just went to Japan too. And she goes, "Oh, I went there." I was like, I'm not happy with you. You didn't do the Mario Kart real thing, but anyhow, you could actually climb up to the Godzilla head where it does roar, and you could actually hit a button and make it roar, everybody. And yeah, but it's such synonymous with Japan at this point that people know who Godzilla is, what he is. And the funny thing is Toho is not the biggest studio in Japan. It's still considered a low budget. And they do have a museum. Me being an enthusiast of Godzilla over the years, and it wasn't through when I went to trade school in 1992 that I started getting into it with a friend of mine who I went there with, and she got me into it, and I started loving it and buying the VHSs and everything else at that time, the older films, 90s films, and so forth. But the thing is that we realized, okay, this is like a little niche to us, and you're gonna look at me and sound, it's like, oh, this guy's, he's a huge fan. Yes, I am. I'm not D-Man 1954. He's on YouTube. Anyhow, but I've been following it, and I just found something within my childhood that I just continued on within my adulthood that I just carry on because I just love the lore and the idea. And you could find these things and keep going.
One thing that you touched on is that storyline of Koichi. And,
yes.
Because you guys danced around it and a little bit, Daphne was just like, he hadn't quite accepted his family. But it was like, it's so much deeper than that. And that's definitely
it is.
What I love the most of this movie is, so this point is kind of a recap of his story, his arc, that I'm just calling Koichi's War.
Honestly, Pake, that is a perfect way of explaining it. I mean, really.
Yeah, you're right.
And so, as you mentioned, Mark, he's this kamikaze pilot. They're at the near the end of World War II, right here at the end, and he abandons his mission under the guise of engine trouble in order to live. He's too much of a coward to follow through with his mission he's given, pretends he's got engine trouble, and lands on this island of Odo with these mechanics. That it's set up here for them to be mechanics for these planes. And they realize once Tachibana is the guy that's on the island, the head mechanic that looks over his plane and realizes there's nothing wrong with it. And there's this look between them. He knows exactly what's going on with him. And they have that conversation near the water where you see Tachibana understands what he's going through and doesn't really judge him too harshly about it.
No,
at first.
He doesn't.
Then, of course, we get to the point of Godzilla showing up. And out of fear, Koichi freezes up and once again doesn't do the thing he's instructed to do. And this time it leads to a massacre of all of the mechanics of Odo. Man number 5, as he's credited, did not help by being the one to shoot first, but, let's not point fingers.
He tried. I mean, again, we're talking about these poor mechanics this is not their role, but they were trying to do something, which is more than Koichi was doing.
Right. Yeah, but it ends up Koichi and Tachibana are the only ones to survive. At least now he's not lying about his plane being damaged. But yeah, that's what we see now as Koichi's arc for the whole movie, is his honor and what is worth sacrificing for, and the consequences of your actions either way, whether you sacrifice or you cower. And so when they leave Odo, Tachibana leaves him with the photos of all of the mechanics and their families and stuff, their belongings that were there on the island, to hold on to as a reminder of what he did, what his choices led to. And of course, as you said, he returns home as a kamikaze pilot. People knew he was a kamikaze pilot, so him returning home means he did not do what he was supposed to do. To where even, his neighbor is telling...
Sumiko.
Sumiko is telling him,
yes.
Well, then, this destruction, the fact that we lost this war, that's your fault because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And, yeah, so he's just kind of this pariah, in a way, for people who know him, and he kind of has to keep it under wraps from people who don't know him what it is. And he's continually having nightmares of that night on Odo. It's a lot of hefty trauma that he's dealing with. He is haunted by that night and the men that died because of his actions or his inaction. But then with Noriko,
it's his guilt.
Definitely this big guilt. And there's different forms of guilt. And so with Noriko and Akiko, that he kind of takes in and is taking care of them and is building this little family unit. And it's a nice life. It's a nice little makeshift family.
Oh, and you miss Sumiko, his neighbor, offering milk.
Yeah, she's able to help out. And so he's got a good, work now with friends. He's got a house, stability. But as Daphne said, he's refusing to accept that. And it's not that it's because he's like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. It's this looming shadow of dishonor. He feels that he does not deserve love. He does not deserve a family. He does not deserve a good life because of the things that he has done. That he
doesn't deserve to dream.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve to hope and wish for something better because of everything he's done.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes. So eventually because he's having these nightmares that are blending over into, even after he's awake, he's questioning what's real, what's not, am I in hell, basically. And so he admits to Noriko the truth of his past, explaining why he's been distant from her, the things that's going on in his mind. And he's punishing himself for being what is viewed as dishonorable and cowardly.
Yes.
And so he has that breakdown after the attack on the ships when he's out there with at work, with his mine crew.
The wood ship,
I like that.
By the way, everybody.
Can I just say I love that crew of that ship?
They're great.
Yes.
My heart, oh my
gosh. I agree, yeah.
I was so worried for them to die. I'm like, no, none of them.
Yeah, the reason why it was wood is that it wouldn't attract mines that are magnetic. So, yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing was interesting. We'll talk about that. But
I thought that was great.
Go on, Pake.
While he's out there, of course, his ship survived, but he sits here and watches Godzilla rip through this other boat and use that, radioactive heat ray, as they're calling it here, to blow up the other ship. And it's bringing him right back to Odo, that place of uselessness, where he's like, I was there, and there's nothing I could do, and all of these people died.
But he at least does get up and shoot the gun this time. He does do
you notice
that.
There's that moment where his fingers lock up again, he's not going to be able to do it again, and then he pushes himself through, which is growth. I do think it's a great thing he has Noriko with him, because she's able to ground him a little bit, which is major, because who knows what shape he'd be in without her. But then that's when the first mainland attack of Godzilla in Ginza, where Noriko is assumed dead at the end of that attack.
That was an intense scene in the sense of what happened with, and this is classic Godzilla with the train.
That whole sequence with the music from the 50s, or the original Godzilla theme, as he's marching down the street with the people running down the street screaming, and the train sequence and all, it's classic Godzilla. It's iconic. Yeah.
It just had this old feel to me. Like, the way that the whole thing was shot.
Yeah.
It felt like vintage. Vintage is the word I want.
Yeah.
It's Akira Fukube and his glory coming back into the fold of Godzilla. Akira Fukube died in 2006, unfortunately, but they still continue to use his themes from the original Godzilla themes, which are still eerie and still 100% perfect for the series.
It's just, yep, here we go.
They're still always resonating. They're always there. They're redone by other composers, which is fine, but it's classic, and that's what it is. And the fact that it's also classic to the original, where if you remember the Blue Oyster Cult song where they talk about, here goes Tokyo about Go Go Godzilla, he picks up a truck and throws it back down, blah, 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 blah. So it's very similar to the train aspect. We got that in Legendary as well, the Legendary films as well, as you recall. So we're getting more reminiscence of what Godzilla truly is and what he does, and whether it be menacing or not, it's there. And that scene itself, whether it be CG or not, was very chilling, with it being split in half, her hanging on.
Oh my gosh, that whole sequence
was so intense. I just love that sequence. It gives me vibes of King Kong. The original King Kong. So that's exactly what Ishiro Honda originally wanted for the original Godzilla back in the day. He wanted to do his version of King Kong, but more in a Japanese light and its own story. So it's reminiscent, and it rings through. We're cyclical at this point. It's kind of constantly coming back, but it's great. And the effects were amazing. The scene was amazing, and the reaction.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing. A huge point in the movie. And as I was saying, because then you think like his trauma from past has already been building up on him, and it's after this where he makes his way there when he realizes what's going to happen. He tries to save Noriko, and she ends up saving him, sacrificing herself in a way, is at least what we're led to believe till the end. And this trauma keeps stacking on him to where now he has a substantial level of survivor's guilt weighing on him now as well. That is 3 attacks that he has.
He has a mission.
That's now 3 attacks between Odo Island, out on the boat, and now here in the city that have left him one of very few survivors. And this survivor's guilt stacked on just the PTSD and also just blaming himself. It's all stacking to where even he has this like breakdown where he's viewing losing Noriko as penance for his cowardice back on Odo. He's sitting here going, well, of course she died. I deserve that. She was something good in my life, and I don't deserve something good in my life because of what I've done. Her death is on me, and he's blaming himself. He has, because he had finally gotten comfortable and happy when that attack happened. He was starting to feel part of a family unit. He was starting to allow Akiko to call him dad. And because he was getting comfortable in that, he deserved Noriko's death because he shouldn't be comfortable. And this is what he continues to beat himself up about.
Even in front of his cohorts, his coworkers, he was saying, Kiko would say, "Daddy, Daddy," and it's like, "I'm not your daddy," and it was so sad.
They gave him a hard time for that because
they did.
They're just like, you're brought together, you're a family. They're trying to get him to understand it, but again, Pake, what you said, he doesn't believe he deserves that.
Right, to where even after Noriko's quote unquote death, they've got this plan. They've come up with the plan. They have the meetings with the people. And they're sitting together, just the friend group, drinking and talking and eating about it. And Akitsu's a little drunk, but Akito says to him, like, well, you should have married her before, so, there should have been more thing. And he says he wanted to do that. And then that's where I kind of got the theme for this is Koichi's war. Because he says, but I wasn't ready to do that because my war is not over. Again, feeling he didn't deserve that yet. He has to win this war within himself first. He's got to redeem himself in some way. So this final mission against Godzilla has its chance to be his redemption, no matter how it ends. Live or die, this is what it's going to take for him to redeem himself, to be worthy of the life that he's dreaming of.
Exactly.
So then the plan comes together, them getting the plane, the fighter plane, and him bringing in Tachibana again. And we, again, with him talking to him, realizing the reason he refused to use anyone other than Tachibana is because of the secret plan of implanting the bombs into the fighter, with that plan of flying into Godzilla's mouth to detonate from the inside. It's a last-ditch effort, but it also is him feeling like that may be the thing that's needed to make up for my cowardice in the past. I'm not going to survive that, but that's the redemption. That's how my story deserves to end after everything that I've done and been through.
And it's his plan.
Yeah.
Like, he comes up with that plan. He asks Noda, can you get me a plane?
Yeah.
Correct.
And they tracked
good
down
that they got this
plane.
plan because they would not have succeeded without it.
No, they needed it. They were almost all dead.
But what's most touching, I think, is like, because you're talking about the emotional beats of getting a little like, I'm a emotional sucker for movies and TV shows. I cry at everything. And the one point that really did get me in this movie is the reveal from Tachibana. And I think it started because as he's getting him rigged up in the plane and stuff, you can tell whenever he's like, here's the note that the drawing that Akiko made for me, and here's this. And Tachibana sees that he still keeps those photos of the men that he gave him on the ship off of Odo. I think, you can tell in Tachibana's face that he's surprised, but touched that he still holds on to those. That it still is something that is important to him, that he is like making part of him. And so that brings that reveal even better, that whenever you see, the kamikaze flight into Godzilla and the explosion, and you kind of assume, well, yeah, that was his arc. That's the end. And then you see him with the parachute, and then it flashes back to that reveal that Tachibana had included the ejection seat and telling him, I know I told you that it's your fault that all of this happened, but you need to live. You've done what you need to do. And that's the part that really got me the most emotionally. And then to wrap it all up, then Noriko still being alive. And I love that her first words to him in the hospital or where she's in recovery is your war finished? Are you done?
Yeah.
And so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely got me too.
It got me too. And Tachibana and how his character was in reference to with Koichi and how they were able to, it's like he hated, Tachibana hated Koichi, and then him reaching out, trying to find him, going through the services, putting himself there, doing Rob and Adam going, why is he hailing down and trying to get information about, Tachibana? I was like, because the guy didn't want to be known, and he doesn't want to be known amongst other people. He hated Koichi at that point. It's like, and then he seeks him out, and even Tachibana at a certain point when they were going through the actual game plan of everything, he was mad at Koichi at that point.
I liked Koichi's,
if you remember,
method of, he's like, I don't know exactly where he is, but I know places that he could be reached. And I was like, if I write these notes and ask him, hey, I need your help, he hates me, and he's not going to show up.
Correct.
So his version of it is actually what happened on Odo is your fault. He knew that it would piss him off enough to make Tachibana hunt him down, and that's what he wanted. Yeah.
And hate him even more. Yeah, I know. And it was his way of trying to ploy him out of the deal. But he also wanted to make amends of what had happened. The one thing that we didn't really top upon was in this particular movie, we had a Bikini Atoll explosion.
And we all know how much Godzilla hates that.
And that was in representation of the legendary show Monarch Legacy of Monsters. And this, they actually do reference it, which was very cool because literally that is how he went from a Godzillasaurus, which would be an old, Cretaceous power.
Yeah, that's what imbued him with this radioactive ability that becomes the destructive Godzilla we know and love, honestly. Yeah.
I have never heard Godzilla referred to as Godzillasaurus, but I might like it.
Oh, it's referenced into an old Godzilla versus Mecha King Ghidorah movie that you should watch. Now, mind you, it's early to mid 90s, and you're gonna say, this is so campy. Why am I watching this? Why am I watching a human cyborg running in motion and everything going back behind me? Because that's how Toho was with its low budget films in the 90s. But we get a flashback of the Bikini Atoll and what had happened on that island with a garrison and an explosion, and where a Godzillasaurus, and they call it a Godzillasaurus, and he gets exploded and with nuclear waste at a certain point and becomes what we know as Godzilla. So it's showing reference to the old series as well as the current series in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, as well as in -1, 2, and keeping continuity with Godzilla lore. And that I just love. They're keeping it continuous.
So Daphne, what about you? What's a point for you?
Oh, I have no points. You've covered everything, so thank you so much for coming to Run for Your Lives this week.
Sorry.
No. I feel like we've talked about a lot of things.
We talked the human element and the story plot. Okay.
But I will tell you there are a few things.
Okay.
One, I actually saw the part when the plane hit Godzilla and the ejection shot came up. Like, before I knew, or before they showed that, I saw him fly out of the plane. Also, when it panned out after he was showing him about the lever for the bombs, and he said, oh yeah, and this, but we didn't hear it, I suspected that there might be a failsafe. And I was relieved because I did not want him to die. I was really concerned about it because that is what it looked like was going to happen. He's one of, I will say this too, this season, there have been some characters that I'm already thinking, yep, this is going to be rough at the end of the season when it comes time for us to do our look back and pick our top characters and side characters or whatever. This one's going to be rough. This season's going to be rough because every movie we cover, there's someone that I feel like I have to think of them. I can't forget them when it comes time because of reasons. And Koichi, to me, he had one of the biggest arcs that I've seen in movies as far as from the emotional standpoint of where he was at and the shame.
Yeah.
To becoming the hero that he needed to be in order to shut down his demons and embrace his family.
Yeah.
And I've said before on this podcast, family isn't always related by blood. It's, the family you choose for yourself sometimes. And I think this is one of those times.
Koichi actually chose his own family between Akiko and Noriko. And,
he did.
And creating his own family at that point, as well as his friends who he worked with on the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even that, that whole crew, Noda and Akitsu and Mizushima.
Yeah. Before you all run off on that street so I can't talk about Shiro, I'm just going to say I legitimately cheered when he brought in the cavalry. Yes. Because I hate when someone is discounted as the stay at home. Honestly, though, protect,
I don't think that's what it was.
I was excited.
I don't think that's what it was. No. I took the note, which unfortunately, Muzishima, or the kid, he didn't hear this part of it, but I don't think he was being left out because they didn't think he was, capable. Because he's told, you're not joining the fight in the morning, and he's upset. He's like, I want to fight for my country. And as they're walking away, and he's yelling at them, Akitsu quietly kind of says to himself, Noda can hear him, but he says, no, we're leaving the future of the country in your hands. And so, honestly, they had bigger plans for him. They're like, we don't... Okay. It wasn't as much as, we don't think you're capable, you're going to be in the way. It was no, because no matter how this ends, if we all die, we need somebody we trust that can be back here that is the future.
Yeah.
That would have been great if they had told him that.
But they didn't. Yeah, it's like...
no, they didn't.
What a thing to say under your breath and not where the person that needs to hear it the most actually can hear you say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, how many movies have we covered where it's like they look at someone who's injured and they want them to stay behind when they want to fight, and then so much, at least in this build up to them going to fight, was talking about the deficiencies and the faulty equipment and all of the letdowns that these people have had, and having the opportunity to stand up together and fight for something together, even though they could die. But at one point they were talking about the opportunity for someone to die, and that people, so many people had died, and basically they were hoping this would be the battle nobody died in. They wanted to be the opposite of what the other battles had been.
Yeah, Noda's speech that final night before was, it was good. Where, he said, this isn't a battle. This isn't a fight to the death. This is a fight to live for tomorrow. It was a really great speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I thought that it kind of captured this feeling of, a lot of bad things have happened and we can't do anything about that. But together now, if we don't fight, death is coming. But if we fight together, it could be a good ending. We could live. To have the best chance at living, we need to do this. And I think sometimes the right words at the right time, because some people did desert after they were talking about this, people are going to die. It's not a safe mission.
Which honestly, nobody did. If you look at it, everyone that went out on those ships for that final mission survived. The only ships that were destroyed were unmanned on purpose to waste that first charge of the heat ray. Yeah.
Right. And I guess my final thing, because I feel like I'm giving you all of my points in one, is this moment of quiet when they think that Godzilla is amping up to blow them away with, to me, what was like a souped up wave motion gun, and anyone who watched Star Blazers in the 80s or 70s, that is. The moment of quiet where they're all looking at each other thinking they're going to die, and Koichi comes in with the plane and flies straight into Godzilla's head was
in his mouth.
Breathtaking.
Yeah.
It was breathtaking to watch. Because it was this...
It was the Jaws moment. Was it the Jaws moment?
Maybe.
Because he goes right into Godzilla's mouth. Well, the plane goes into Godzilla's mouth.
Yeah.
And it explodes.
Or up yours. Maybe it's an Independence Day moment.
Well,
up yours.
Very much.
Really, I think that there's just moments in this movie where, silence or lack of noise or scoring or whatever made things more impactful. And for me, this is a moment, if I think about this movie, I'm going to remember that silence and just before Koichi's plane went into Godzilla.
Yeah.
Because they all think it's over for them. Like, they're all looking at each other like, oh, it's over. Like, we're dead. What could we possibly do to escape this? There's no way we can. And Koichi just flies in, and it's just like, oh my God. Yeah, it blew me away. I started this movie not knowing how I was going to feel about it and not knowing where it was going to take me. And it took me places I was not expecting, emotionally and just cinematography-wise. Were the effects perfect? No, but I am not complaining about them because I think with the budget they had to do what they did, I think they pulled it off. And it won the Oscar for visual effects.
They were Oscar-worthy to enough people, so yeah.
Yeah.
No, there were definitely some moments that I thought were a little wonky or whatever, but I mean, I guess it wasn't that big of a deal. But again, you look at budget and stuff, but then the things that worked so exceedingly well that...
Yes.
I did have one thought. The Godzilla, when we first see it out in the water when they're on the little mine boat, it looked a little goofy in the face. He's a little derpzilla. And I'm a lot more used to, I guess, I'm a lot more into the modern Monarch, legendary Godzilla Monsterverse version. So it's like, this is probably a lot more accurate to the original. And this is the Toho universe, so...
This is the Toho universe, and the Godzilla has always had that kind of cross between man, like human versus lizard kind of look, and we call it the dog face. Kind of
dog face.
They call it a dog face because the eyes, the snout, and how he looks, and that's just more of the Toho moniker of the character. And it came out a little bit more. Back in the early 2000s, between 2000 to 2000, I would say 15-ish, it came of more elongated a little bit. Had a few times where the eyeballs were whited out. There was a couple of times. He had that elongated kind of dog face look. And that's where they looked at it. And it's called dog face for a reason, because if you look at it, it does look like a dog.
You just say,
I didn't think that, but now I feel like I need to go back and look at it again.
You gotta look at it and go, yeah, it looks like a little dog face in your face, but all scaly. And, that was mostly his look for years. Kitagawa had that when he portrayed it in the 2000s. Who was it? We got Haruo Nakajima, and Kenpachiro Satsuma, who portrayed him in the 90s. Nakajima from like 54 to, I would say, in the late 70s, and then Satsuma from the 80s to the 90s, and then 90s to like late 90s to the 2000s would be Kitagawa. And it's just wild how the suits have changed, or the look, but they kind of keep reminiscent of it. If you look at Godzilla versus Hedorah, you look more of like a humanistic kind of look on his face, whereas with the 90s, it's kind of more animalistic, but kind of more of a snout. And then by the 2000s, it's kind of like a little bit more elongated to give it more of a lizard look, but it works. And then with this, it was a combination to give it more of that dog look. And a lot of us, there have been iterations of that kind of dog look over the course of, I'm going to say 70 years, honestly. And it's pretty cool.
I've never heard of this, so to me, it's fascinating, and I'm going to have to go watch it again, or at least watch part of it.
Or watch a YouTube based upon Godzilla's facial features and what he looks like and what people state. I recommend D-Man 1954 on YouTube for all those out there for the legendary as well as the original Toho series, as well as everybody else out there. And just do a YouTube search, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of cool, interesting things.
I do have one other Godzilla lore question, which I do have another note that kind of answers my question, but I still wanted to ask you anyway. Another thing that's in this movie that I've never seen before, and that's because I'm not well versed in a lot of Toho Godzilla. Again, it's more modern, legendary, and modern retellings that I know well. Is his regeneration factor is a huge part of this movie, and I was like, that's new to me because I don't go back to a lot of the older Godzilla. Yeah. So I was like, mental note. I was like, make sure to ask Mark if this is like a lore thing that's been there forever.
Yeah.
This is a lore thing. He is able to regenerate at certain points. Now, mind you, when he's complete death, and we have the Godzilla skeleton at certain points where Mechagodzilla was taken from, even in the original Toho lore, which we got in the Legacy lore, everybody. Yes, spoilers. I'm sorry. But
we've covered a lot of the...
I know you have, and we're going to be continuing to do so later on. But the thing is, he has a regenerative factor. And that's also in the sense of kind of like how Jurassic Park is where they're able to recreate themselves. Because in the 90s version, we had Godzilla and little baby Godzilla as well. They are able
to... just like procreate. Life finds a way.
Is it like a frog where the baby comes off the back?
And it was before. Guess what? Jurassic Park.
Oh yes,
everybody.
I'm wearing my Jurassic Park shirt today for the audience.
I know, and I love it.
Yeah, I did say I had a note about that, though, because I did look into something, because there is the very ending of the movie. Again, they stick the landing in the most happy way, mostly, with Noriko surviving the attack on Ginza, has been recovering.
And her face being damaged to everybody.
But it can't be too happy, because as she leans in and hugs Koichi, it is a quick little thing at the end of the movie. You notice this black infection on her neck starting to spread.
Yes.
Well, I also looked into it a little bit. There is a confirmation and a quote from director Takashi Yamazaki that confirms this to be. And again, the question is still going to go to Mark as far as explaining what the lore is.
Go ahead.
He confirms this to be G cells or Godzilla cells that are suggesting a connection to possible regeneration abilities that would lead to future storylines.
Yes.
Which means she may have regeneration abilities now in some way, which sounds insane, but it kind of like how that infection or connection through something. So again, I looked into it enough to see that, but I was like, I don't know that lore, so I'm still like, I don't know what any of that means. Maybe Mark can fill that in.
She got blasted.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how she would survive that.
Correct. That's part of the nuclear energy that was in there, and within that, later years within Final Wars, they integrated G cells into human DNA. And that was an interesting movie. Now, mind you, a lot of people think of it, well, when Rob and I talked about it, he goes, I don't like it. But
I'll be very honest, it does feel, speaking of Jurassic Park, it does feel along the line of, and then combining dino and human DNA to build super soldiers.
Correct.
It does kind of have that, like, okay, we already going off the rails with the weird sci-fi stuff this quickly. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Or it could go another route. So, there are talks about a sequel for Minus One. Keep that in mind. And this is my theory. There were two ideas that were promoted to amongst a lot of people within the Godzilla community. And yes, I will bring you people up, and you probably will damn me for it, but I don't care. Anyhow, there is the thought of the sequel to being for Minus One that it would either be Anguirus or Anguillus, which is a I would say it's more of like a Stegosaurus kind of being.
I got that feel.
So people get that feel that would be the sequel to it. So in the original series, Godzilla Raids Again, literally it's Godzilla coming back, and originally it was called Godzilla the Fire Monster, everybody.
Yeah, because speaking of the regeneration abilities, like we also get, after what we see with the black spreading, is of course we see the regeneration of the chunks of Zilla floating down into the ocean. It was like,
correct.
Yeah, his regeneration is still in effect, even when they crumbled him into bits. It just may take a little while for it to take it to work.
He's going to come back.
Yeah. It made me think of Resident Evil, like Nemesis.
Well, that's how it's long before Resident Evil at this point. So Japan should, kudos to them. Anyhow, so basically, the second movie in original Toho series, Godzilla Raids Again, he goes against Anguirus or Anguillus and the Fire Monster in American terms. And they literally go from there. Okay. The other proposed idea and thought for the second movie would be Godzilla versus Hedorah, which is Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, which is something that is more of more pollution and something which is, if you think about it, atomic waste and something out there. So they could easily transition that into a story that's more realistic in some way.
Because you wonder if this Toho series continues, if they're going to pull in, like monsters like Ghidorah or Rodan or Mothra. Mm-hmm. But Legendary is already doing that, so it almost feels like at this point they should go a completely different direction.
Well, if they do Hedorah, then this would be different. It'd be more biological, something comparable to the Earth. Whereas, spoilers everybody, with the next Godzilla movie that's coming out, Ex Kong Ex Mortis or whatever it's called, they're looking at like the fact that we'd have a space Godzilla. There's a lot more story in that. But the thing is, in my defense, if they're trying to do this strategically within Toho to be a little bit more modern but more contemporary, they're going to go more towards the more realistic and what's Earth-based. And they're going to say more man's folly and make it more that way before they actually go more into the more fantasy and space-oriented stuff, which, we always loved as kids. But the thing is that since they already got us with -1, would be more human based and nuclear and everything else, the next step would be more pollution based, or more another antagonist that was based upon that.
Well, analogy works strong with this, which I know, from what I understand, that's what Godzilla was in the 50s to begin with, was because it was right on the heels of World War II and a lot of this stuff. And so
correct.
That it is an analogy. It is a metaphor. That's why he's got these nuclear powers. It is the metaphor of the destruction and trauma from nuclear war and the things that Japan experienced at the end of World War II. And the way that it traumatized people, and even when the war was over, there was continual damage and things that were all and trauma that continued to happen. Like, it wasn't just an easy fix. And so that's what it's a metaphor for, to the point that I had to include this note. The title of the movie itself, Godzilla Minus One. and I just took this quote directly from Screen Rant, so I'll give them the credit for that. But the idea behind Godzilla Minus One as the title is to indicate that Japan was at zero, the country's lowest point after World War II. From being on the opposite side of the war to the Allied powers of World War II to the nuclear attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan was in an incredibly dire state in the 1940s. In the film, Japan's restructuring as a country is worsened immeasurably by the emergence of Godzilla and his subsequent attacks against the country. Therefore, the subtitle of Minus One indicates that Godzilla's wave of terror has taken the country below the point of zero.
That is perfect sense, I think.
Yeah. That does make sense, yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering what the name of the next one's going to be. Do you know, Mark? I think it's just in development. Yeah. I know that they're working on it.
It is in development. That's about all I know. So, yeah.
So we'll be switching back to cover Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, and then, diving into Monarch when it comes out. Probably before we get to this new one.
So we all got 1 point, and then it all kind of devolved into just
notes.
What's left over, which is fine, because I have a lot of notes and stuff, but I almost feel like let's just take turns just reading through whatever notes we have left and make sure everything's covered we want to cover. Because I threw in a bunch of stuff. So this is literally just gonna be all right, let's go through. Points don't matter. So it's whose line? And just look through my points in my notes and be okay, I didn't say that one yet. And lightning round. So yeah, the visual of the deep sea fish coming up to the top of the water, it was really interesting.
Yes.
I liked that a lot.
Yes, it was.
Really, really cool to have that as a continuing motif.
Koichi's face, when he's on the boat and sees those fish coming up, and not only sees the fish coming, he's hearing the gurgly, watery sounds. Seeing that on his face where he's realizing, shit's gonna get real now.
Yeah. I love that we got Godzilla very quickly in the movie. There was not a long wait for the monster reveal. Sometimes long waits for a monster reveal are good on a slow burn. But I think with this, it worked really well. Just very early on, the attack on Odo is the establishing shot of the movie almost. So it's we're going to go ahead and get that out of the way and know this is what we're in for.
That was the breakthrough within this particular film. Usually it takes, you literally get to 3/4 into the film till you get a huge major incident. Only snippets in between before. And this is what broke the boundary at that point for a Godzilla film.
See, had some notes, the nuclear blast, the heat ray, as they're calling it. The first time we see it is in that fight with the warship, the Takao. Just blew that to hell, and then it was okay, big guy needs a nap after that. To where I wrote down whenever the second time we see it, when he's in Ginza, and you see everybody freaking out, oh no, I know what this is. Especially Koichi, because he saw what happened to the Takao. So seeing it in the city where he starts with the we said the spines jutting out, and he knew it was coming. And so I wrote down this little nugget, and I said, a little piece of wisdom: if Godzilla's turning blue, then fucked are you. This is a nice little thing to remember.
I think that is very easy to remember. It's practical knowledge that our listeners can employ in their daily lives.
Good rule of thumb, yeah. Just remember.
Yeah.
Let's see. I talked all about Koichi's war. And then just a lot of the final plan is this. Noda is running it, which makes sense, although you see the kid very kind of shocked and excited to see that. With this special disaster countermeasure task force. And again, it is civilian run, Special Operation Warasumi, where, we encased Godzilla in a Freon membrane and sink it to the bottom of the Sagami Trench, hoping the rapid pressure from that will kill Godzilla. And part 2 is then after the rapid sinking, we inflate giant rafts around the creature and quickly raise it back to the surface. It's if the pressure doesn't do the job, for all intents and purposes, we're going to give it the bends. That's the plan.
Yep. I thought it was interesting that they were going to use Godzilla's own voice against it.
Yeah, that didn't go out. We saw pretty quickly how Godzilla felt about that.
I didn't think that'd go well. Yeah.
It just made me think of it's not going to work the way you think it's going to. It's going to piss it off in a way that's going to make it worse for you. Because you do not want to do that. Some animals are territorial, and you know what? Godzilla, I kind of think he might be territorial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I think as far as, kind of how that all ended, we talked about. So, Noriko and Akiko, just the way he meets them, takes them in, whether he wanted to or not. Because the Noriko he meets early in the movie is just very assertive, a little wild, but she is doing what she can to survive and protect this little baby that's not even hers. And as you mentioned, Sumiko, she's angry with Koichi, hates him, honestly, says, my children died because of the choices you made. But, even the disdain that she feels for him, she lost her kids, and she's not going to let another child suffer. So Akiko being here in the next house, she's going to do what she can to take care of her. So I was like, here's another lesson what I've learned is women, let's speak to women out there.
Are you going to mansplain?
I'm going to mansplain real quick. Women, if you really need to find a man, just give a stranger in a shopping center a baby and run away. And then he'll let you into his house and bam, love.
No. Pake, run away right now. Please.
He did not know what to do with that baby, but at least he didn't abandon it. Like, I thought he was going to leave it there. And then he couldn't do it because he just, couldn't do it. And then come to find out it's not even Noriko's baby. It's someone was dying and gave her their baby.
Yeah, their daughter. Yeah, that baby. It's just like...
I think that speaks to the terrifying situation that people were in and just, like, I'm dying, save my child. Like, that was the situation.
And then those who are there accepting and taking in this child and taking responsibility. That shows a lot of magnitude within human consciousness.
I think the world could take a lesson from this movie.
Yeah.
About caring for other people.
Yeah.
It's called being human, everybody. Don't learn it.
Yeah, I guess like the last... I've got some other little jokes and stuff, but honestly, I'm not even worried about those. I think I'll end my notes on another really positive thing, which Daphne mentioned already earlier, very early in the podcast, one of the first things she said, honestly, I think. But just to kind of reiterate that, because I thought another one of the big themes of this movie is again this big final plan that they come up with, and it's all civilian run, and you see that a few people back out, but overall the plan and the group that sticks around, it shows a testament to the power of the people, of unity and a common goal, that we learn that their government can't and won't intervene, so it's up to the everyday citizens to step up and be the heroes. And it's truly another one of the themes of this movie is just seeing the power of unity, and when people come together with a common goal, what they're able to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic message, honestly. I'm glad that we covered this movie now, because I think I really needed kind of that inspirational what we can all do together movie. Yeah. So it definitely helped, I think.
Yeah. So, Mark, you got other notes and stuff as well? Made sure to get mine just at the...
Well, I think the movie resonates based upon human issues in life. How people react within a certain circumstance within their life. Through tragedy, extremism, everything else. I think this actually does represent that. Mind you, it's in a fictitious way and a kind of monster universe, but it shows the human condition and how we survive, how we connect, and how we resolve. All in one movie and within the story. And that's what I was trying to get and represent to what everybody thinks about a Godzilla movie. Because everybody thinks, it's a big monster movie. It's a big monster just coming in and doing things and blah, 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 blah. Everybody forgets the human element is about maybe 65 to 75%
Godzilla always
of the movie.
is a vehicle for allegory of the human condition, for
Correct.
sure.
Yeah.
So
a lot more than I think people are aware of.
But a lot of people don't understand Japanese culture. This is more intense with Japanese culture and storytelling. So I think the fact that it got an Oscar nod was more not just for visual effects, a foreign film that was done well.
Yeah, a monster movie. A monster movie. I have to say, I love seeing things like this happen. Yeah. Like, there have been horror movies that have been nominated for Best Picture in the last,
years.
5 or 6 years.
Yeah. And I always love when that happens because it gives us some movies that we get to cover in February.
It does.
It helps set our schedule in February for us.
It does.
Yeah,
but it's also very cool to see that expansion because for a long time, this genre was overlooked. Like, everyone just getting so dismissive of, well, it's just a monster movie. It's just a horror movie. It's just a slash movie. It's not got any substance. And some of that comes, too, with, I think of Black Panther, which was nominated for an Oscar and is a superhero movie, and people, dismissing things and being more open-minded to what stories can be told beyond a special effects Oscar, which, yes, this got a special effects Oscar, but it got nominated for Best International Film. I just think that it's great to see it get more attention in a different category.
Yeah. You got any more thoughts? Any other stuff? Or if we hold this whole story?
I think I've covered everything I could possibly think of within this particular film. But obviously, as you listeners know, you could send in your feedback and give us thoughts. So give Daphne and Pake your thoughts, and they'll cover it on the next podcast.
Speaking of that, there goes the feedback phone. It sounds a little different today. I don't know. There's a little something different with it. But let me go check that out, and we'll get to your thoughts. All right, we do have a little bit of feedback this week. Also, I'm sure we did just very recently in our timeline. But in case, thanks again to Mark for swinging by. Unfortunately, he had to hop into a little fighter plane and rush away to go to his next podcast he's got to do. So, but yeah, we did have some feedback for Godzilla Minus One, so we'll go ahead and get into that. This first one coming from Harrison over on Facebook saying, one of my favorite Godzilla movies.
Yes, thank you, Harrison. I had a feeling you would have something to say about this one. He always wants us to cover some of the older stuff, so one of these days we will get around to it. Catherine writes in, I've always empathized with Godzilla, so it was quite the emotional roller coaster following Shikishima, knowing his peace would come with Godzilla's defeat. I need a sequel. We all need a sequel.
Yes.
So good. Want more. That movie was an emotional, ride, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of that, this last one right here comes from Sam, who says, for a movie about a giant legendary creature, the biggest thing I remember about it is the haunting and beautiful humanity it portrayed. As a huge Godzilla fan, I wasn't expecting that and was pleasantly surprised. The action scenes were excellent, and it was fun to see Godzilla as the villain in a modern movie. Can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Well, we hope that you enjoy listening to this episode, Sam. We brought in Mark to talk with us. He brought all the lore that we knew that he already knew, so it was great to have him on with us. If you'd like to submit your feedback, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast, or you can email us, runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. You can always go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links that you'll ever need. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on all the podcast players, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. If you feel so inclined, drop us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that is the best way to get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
We do indeed always appreciate that. Of course, speaking of sharing the love, and indeed, got to give some shout-outs to things going on in the Podcastica universe around us and beyond, starting with Indeed, of course, Strange Indeed, my other podcast, with Rima. We are still working through the final season of the Netflix series You, and we're nearing the end. We've got episode 8 up right now, out of 10, so we've only got 2 more to do the next 2 weeks. I'm excited to see where this leads to, how this all wraps up, how it ends, but it's been a really fun ride going through that. So if you're watching You or have watched You, definitely go check out me and Rima's coverage over on Strange Indeed. Also, the cast of us got some stuff. Of course, The Last of Us Season 2 has ended, has wrapped, and now we are just waiting impatiently for Season 3, which is going to be very different, but I'm very excited for it without spoiling anything. But it's going to be great, I think. I'm excited to see how they do it. But there's still a cast of us stuff going on. In the meantime, of course, Alex and Ben are covering The Walking Dead, Dead City, Season 2. So you can check out their coverage over on that feed. And then also this week, Lucy and Jason are joined by Walking Dead cast legend Karen, of course, coming back to talk the OG. And they're talking about 28 Days Later, because, of course, 28 Years is coming out very, very soon, and in getting ready for that, they are going back to where that started with the original there, 28 Days. So coverage of that, go check that out. Also on the Cast of Us feed. Murder Magnets is running right now with the second season of Poker Face. Of course, Penny, Becky, and Jason on episode 7 this week. You can go check that out. And then over on the Cast of the Rings, some things are going on over there. Of course, no, we don't have the next season of The Rings of Power coming quite yet, but our good friend Penny did just take a nice little trip over to Middle-earth, went and spent some time in New Zealand, met up with our favorite Kiwi, Anwin, and so over on the Cast of the Rings feed, Penny and Anwin, who cover that that show and stuff together, definitely got together to chat about their adventure together as Penny traveled over there. So definitely check that out. They're just fun to listen to all the time anyway, so definitely do that. And then outside of Podcastica, of course, speaking of Mark Kirkman, who was just here, he's got the Pirate Core Entertainment Network that he runs over there. Always doing some fun stuff there. You can check him out over on the Panels to Pixels podcast. Episode 300 coming up very soon. So covering Superman 2. I think that's actually out now.
It is. Yep.
Yeah. So episode 300 is out now. And to celebrate that, covering Superman 2. So definitely go give that a listen for some more Mark. And then other podcasts on that network that he's not on, but he's got some great hosts running. The What's On Tonight podcast, which is currently covering the Amazon Prime series, The Better Sister. Becky and Mandy over there running that. So you can check that out. And then Mandy from that one is on the Dinner for Her podcast. And yeah, it's episode 5. Again, just talking about women in history and a lot of really cool stuff. This week is Ida B. Wells Barnett episode. So we go check that out as well. So a lot of good stuff on Pirate Core, a lot of good stuff on Podcastica. And then if you want something even a little bit more on the outside, but it's more of me and Daphne with our friends Jeff and Jerry getting together and being goofy as fuck. You can check out the Buffalo podcast. We just get together, hang out, have fun, torture each other, and by each other I mean mostly Daphne, with as many puns and nonsensical segues as we can possibly manage to fit into an hour episode, and play ridiculous games, most of which don't go as planned in one way or another lately, but you know what, we still have fun. So.
We do, and we're still friends at the end. Yes. So that's the important thing.
But yeah, after going and checking out all of those great podcasts and things going on, you can come right back here to Run for Your Lives next week. We'll have something new for you. Daphne, what are we doing next week?
Well, a year after her sister vanished, a girl and a group of her friends head to the remote valley where she disappeared, only to become trapped in a terrifying time loop with escalating threats. We are covering David F. Sandberg's 2025 film, Until Dawn.
2025, newer movie.
We're on that kick lately.
Yeah.
We are. It's okay.
Yeah, might have a few coming up.
1 or 2.
But there's some good stuff. Hey, I hate to alarm you, but we are getting to like halfway through the year already. So like, there is a lot of 2025 stuff that's been out because we are about halfway through.
I know.
It feels like it should still be December and we actually haven't started 2025 yet, but no, it's here.
Yeah, and you know what? This episode, Pake, this one is episode 218, which means we only have 7 episodes left in this season of Run for Your Lives.
Ooh, crazy.
Yeah.
So be thinking about, not just you, Daphne, but listeners as well. What that means, we get closer to the end of a season, we'll have our look back, we'll have our Riffle Awards, so be thinking about what your favorites of the season were so far, even though, we've still got like 7 movies to go, so
yeah,
who knows, we might still have some really good stuff coming in that last little group, so
I think we will. Tuned. There's some great stuff out there. We're having fun with it, so it's crazy to think we'll be on season 10. Like, next season is season 10 of Run for Your Lives. Mm-hmm. And we're coming up on 5 years of doing this podcast next month. And I can't believe that. I can't believe it's been 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to think about it.
Should be like Breaking Bad and just decide 5 seasons, it's 10 seasons, but 5 years is good enough. And we'll just go ahead and call it quits while we're ahead.
I don't know. Are we running out of movies?
I don't think so. I think we have plenty of movies to still do. So yeah, you're right. On the other hand, we've got too much to do. So I guess we'll have to stick around and do another 10 seasons.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Well, that brings us to the end of another dynamic episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.